Hi, everybody, and welcome to the documentary of Yuki fixes a PC and tries to get back into VR chat. I know it's been a while, but I want to update you guys on what's been going on with the PC build. So, if you have not been able to participate or follow along, make sure you follow up with the other update videos I've been doing because it gives you the process of how I how me and my cousin have been working on the PC for the last few weeks. So, just a little review of what happened, what has happened in the last week. So my PC burned out on about October 20, uh, around around a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. This was before my birthday, and everything was working all of that fine, and then all of a sudden it burns out, i.e., does not work. So I decided to unplug everything and start tearing it down to make sure that it's not a big problem. So I took out the motherboard, we took out the power supply because the power supply burned out, and we make sure that everything works with the components. Then it turns out the motherboard became a problem because it's electronic, and I'll explain why in a moment. Why this is big. So this motherboard here, as I'm going to show you right now, is the old motherboard. So don't worry, I cannot damage this further because this is the old one, and I have a new one ready to go in action, just in the case of events. So the motherboard is electronic. That's gonna become important in a moment. So my cousin comes over 2 days ago, and we talked about, hey, let's try this again with a new motherboard to see if everything works correctly. The good news is all the components work except for one, the CPU. Why does that matter? Because of today's topic and today's little update. To get a new PC or to get a new CPU? I'll explain why in a moment. So all the components work except for the CPU. The graphics card and the RAM actually light up, so that's good news. And then we were able to have the new power supply work. That's also good news. The bad news is it cannot post. But wait a second, what does posting mean? So post is a term in the computer building business of making it work on the display. It's a fancy word for display. All you need to do for that is plug in your graphics card, plug in your HDMI cable to your TV or monitor, and make sure your CPU cord and your 24-pin cord is plugged in with your power supply. And if it displays something, you do what they call post, and that's called the post page, the posting stage. If it posts, congratulations, everything works. Except of course, you don't have anything else. So no map, no RAM, no hard drive, no nothing. You just have to put everything back together. So there's a little bit of a history lesson there about posting. But so we couldn't get it to post. And my cousin believes that it's this puppy right here, the PC, the CPU, excuse me. So why is this important? The CPU, or processor as some people would call it, which is the actual term, is the brain of the computer. Okay. Think of the motherboard as the parent, as the person, and the CPU as the brain. Okay? That's the best analogy I can give it. And or if you want, the motherboard is the mom, the CPU is the son, and the father is going to be, let's say the case. I don't know, but the analogy is family. So if the PC is the brain or the son, the motherboard is the mother, and the case is the father. Okay? The brain of the family needs to work for the mother to work and the father to work. All of them have to be have to be in unison. If one doesn't work, then the whole family is broken. Okay? That's how you think about a PC. All right? So, now, let's answer this question. To buy a new PC or to buy a new CPU? Okay, let's think about this if you are brand new to PC building. Let's say you have the same problem I have. The motherboard burns out, the power supply burns out, and the CPU doesn't work. Why did I say the motherboard? Why did I say the burnout of the power supply is important? Because the motherboard, the CPU, and the power supply is connected by one particular thing, and that is electricity. Okay, and if the power supply burns out, then the motherboard, the CPU, and the power supply go with it. Now here's the thing, what about the components? Thankfully, in my case, the components actually worked. Like I mentioned earlier, it started lighting up, the graphics card works, the only thing was the CPU. Okay. Now, because I said you have to replace the motherboard as well for the power supply, of course you have to replace the power supply and the motherboard. The question is now CPU or PC. Why is this important? Because if it is indeed the CPU, you would just buy a CPU and it will work, right? Well, not quite. Not quite yet. Because keep in mind, the motherboard had to be replaced too. And if you replace the motherboard with a different chipset, then that's a problem. For example, the good news is for my new motherboard, the Tomahawk, it also supports AMD. But there's a catch. Third generation only. Third generation plus. Meaning, third generation is AMD Ryzen 7, Ryzen 9, and etc., 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 all the way into the future. So technically speaking, the motherboard I just got is future proof. Meaning any AMD Ryzen 7, 9, 12, whatever, is going to work. It will not support first gen or second gen, which is AMD Ryzen 3 and AMD Ryzen 5. And that's important because if you have a new chipset for your new motherboard, your processor is going to change. So if you're going to buy a CPU and you're going to have to buy a new motherboard because of the burnout, or if the motherboard is broken outright, be very careful that you need to have your correct chipset. This chipset for this old motherboard is AM4, but it supports Ryzen 3 and 5. So if I was 357, so had this motherboard been working correctly, then I can support all the way up to Ryzen 9. Up until Ryzen 7, I believe, excuse me. Because it is first and second gen. The new motherboard will support everything Ryzen up to except for 3 and 5. Therefore, this is future proof, this is not. Also, your motherboard chipset has to match the one that you want your CPU to play. For example, like I mentioned, your chipset is important. If your motherboard only supports Intel and you have an AMD, then you have to buy both the motherboard and the CPU, and that costs more money. Okay? Along with the power supply, by the way, if your thing burns out. Next, again, you have to make sure Intel, does it go up to 9, Intel 9, Intel 15, whatever, or AMD ways. AMD 3, AMD 5, AMD 7, AMD 9. Does your chipset work with the motherboard? And does your CPU function with the motherboard? And your memory, and your RAM, and your graphics card. So make sure everything works. So what's the risk of reward analysis of new CPU or new PC? I'm gonna help you out as much as I'm gonna help myself out here. So let's analyze the CPU part first. The risk is, especially if you go to a store, that I mean they're good people. They're good people at the store. They're never gonna give you a defective product, but you never know. Make absolute sure that when you open your CPU, that it has a fan, meaning the cooler that goes on top of the thing, and the processor along with the thermal paste. Make absolute sure that you look at the CPU, the little square thing. Look at look it at the back. Make sure there's no bent pins. A bent pin is bad news. Otherwise, it won't work. Okay, you have to have all 255 pins working. Okay, I believe that's the number, but I know it's 200 something. But in any case, all the pins have to be working and all the pins have to be not bent. A bent pin is defective product automatically, no matter if it's bought at a store. Return that immediately and get a new one. Second risk, the motherboard and the CPU. Let's say you buy a motherboard that says and claims that it supports up to Ryzen 9, but then you find out that, ooh, it doesn't work, it doesn't post. Then you have to make sure that the motherboard is not from a defective. Then you have to buy another one. Okay? That's the risk reward analysis of the CPU route. Of course, the reward is everything works. Now let's talk about pre-built PCs. The risk is you have to spend more money. And sometimes they're expensive. However, the reward is it's a pre-built PC and everything works. Okay? By default, if you buy a pre-built PC, everything works, power supply out of the box. Congratulations. You don't need to do nothing. Turn it on, you're good. But what's the bad news? What's the risk? The risk here, if you're buying a new pre-built PC, is how much RAM, how much graphics card, how much is the PC thing, the CPU, and what else does it come with? Is it enough power to do what you do? For example, me, video editing. Also, the games like VR Chat, Call of Duty, Mario. Can it power all of that plus the power supply? Now, the good news is the reward also is if you do not like something in the pre-built PC and you have components that you like, that you have already, swap it out. Swap it, swappy. Pre-built PCs are pre-built PCs for the sake of making a PC. For the sake of, here's a computer, turn on, congratulations. But a pre-built PC has the opportunity for you to make your own build out of a pre-built PC. Call it whatever you want. Swappy. If the memory is not like what you like, swap it. If the graphics card is not what you like, swap that too. Just do not swap the CPU. Okay? Do not swap no CPU. That's not good. If you like the expanded storage options, hey, swap the hard drive. If you want, I have a 3 terabyte hard drive. If I don't like 1 terabyte, just swap it. So that's the advantage with PC pre-built. And because in my case, my hard drives work, hey, I just swap it. I'm just swapping. Okay? That's the reward of a pre-built PC in my case, in my opinion. Obviously, the risk is, hey, it's expensive. But the reward is, hey, congratulations, you have a new PC that automatically works. Because if you go to the CPU route and you buy a new CPU, it still has a shot to not work. That's the risk you run with a new CPU. Okay? Okay. There's a little bit of cleanup in terms of the motherboard that you want to pay attention to. Make sure that if you buy a new CPU, PC, and etc., I/O shield. I/O. How many things it has, like USB ports and all that good stuff. Okay, that's it. That is our update for now. I will decide officially if I want to go the CPU route or PC route. I think I'm gonna go PC route because I think I don't want to take the no more risky. No more risky. Especially behind on projects. Behind on the new channel, by the way, Mario Maker Yuki, kind of. And of course, I'm starting that new LE Sports Soccer channel that I want to start now. Because I'm into it. Anyway, that's all for now. We'll see you guys in a few hours. We have a new video coming out for our Mario Maker Yuki fans. We have a website tour for you guys. And then tonight, we're going to do a breakdown of the Los Angeles Kings versus the Golden Knights game, like I mentioned earlier. So we're gonna be, if you guys are interested, Copley, I believe Aiden Hill for the Vegas Golden Knights, and I believe somebody is gonna be for the Kings. So that will be later tonight. I'm going to break it down, go by go, almost go by go, but we'll see what happens. Can the Kings win 6 in a row on the road before they come home for 4 against the Blues, Philadelphia Flyers, and 2 other teams? Can the winning streak on the road continue? Find out tonight when we break it down at around 10:45. Enjoy.